Hi Jerome, it's Martin Hill. I'm just going to go through your video that you posted online for me, and what I'll do is because it's quite short, what I'll do is I'll play it right the way through first, just have a general chat, and then I'll look through it again and point out any specific areas. But the very first thing that really comes to light is your stroke rate, and I'm not sure how you think in terms of your swimming, how strong or how fast you think you're swimming stroke rate wise. But you're roughly about 34-35 strokes per minute, and that's actually quite slow. Typically, open water swimmers, stroke triathletes have a stroke rate of 70, 75 up to 90. So you can see that you're actually really slow in comparison. And I'm not sure how you swim in open water, or whether you do actually swim in open water. But when it's choppy, which it can be just by virtue of the fact that you've got lots of people, the stroke rate that you've got is probably hindering more than helping in terms of propelling yourself. So that's one of the issues that I'll talk about. So having seen through the video completely now, what I'll do is I'll take it back to the beginning and just talk through a few specific areas, things that are really standing out in terms of your stroke. And I'll stop and start at various places. I'll look at the top left hand screen to start off with, and we'll watch your right hand. So ignore your left hand here, watch your right hand as it comes into the water. It's coming in quite steep. It's not overly clear in terms of the video, but you can see it's coming in quite steep, which in itself is not particularly an issue. But what happens here, you can see that your hand is still going down, elbow is nice and high, and I'm not sure whether that's what you're thinking of. But what happens then is that you can see your hand, as it goes in, it drops down and then levels out, and then it starts to turn and sweep inwards and pulls back across there. So you can see that's starting to happen there. And then you pull back, and the position that you've got there is quite nice, but ideally would probably be slightly higher. In other words, keep your elbows high as you pull back. You've probably heard of high elbows, and you need to think of that in terms of the catch or the part under the water rather than the part above the water. And what you're aiming for is to try to keep your elbow high and your forearm vertical. And again, you may have heard of vertical forearm or early vertical forearm. And that essentially is what you're trying to think of and aim for as you do this part of the stroke. So you can see there, we'll come back to your left hand and look in particular, but again, looking through this, not too bad an entry, maybe slightly further away from you if you could do, but you can see there how your elbow starts to drop effectively in relation to your hand as your hand levels out. I'm not sure whether you're thinking about reaching forward at that stage, but what actually happens is that you're slowing yourself down, and then your hand rotates and then pulls across. In other words, you're pushing water this way underneath your body, and then it pulls back and then sweeps down underneath your body. Coincidentally, at that position there, can you see how that's pulling out? What that's actually causing, and I'm not sure whether you're aware of this from the feeling or from the video, but if we move across to this top right hand screen now, see what happens here. As your hand there pushes water inwards, to counter that action of pushing water in the direction of the arrow, you see how your leg kicks out, and it's quite a strong kick from your knee, which is not really effective in terms of propulsion at all. It's more a countering of what you're doing with your hand there. So you can see here from a streamline point of view, you're effectively not very streamlined at all at that point, and disturbing water throughout that whole part of the stroke. Then if we follow that through, then now we watch your left hand as it comes in the water. Very similar, goes in quite steep again, and again could probably, rather than coming in there, could probably enter slightly further away. But as your hand goes in the water, you see how your fingers are quite open, and effectively what you're doing is water is just sliding through your fingers at that stage, and again you can see it quite clearly there. And what you're trying to aim for is not to have a tense hand, not trying to keep your hand tense or your fingers tight together, but a relaxed hand but with your fingers just naturally and comfortably in a neutral position, so that they're not tense, but there's just a gap. The millimetre or 2 millimetres between your fingers is fine, but what we don't want to see is a big gap like we have there, because what is happening there is that water is effectively slipping through your hand, so you're losing water. And very similar now, we see your hand and arm effectively catching the water, but it's quite late, if you like, in terms of the stroke and the effectiveness of that catch. And you can see again how your hand is underneath your body when you're catching and pushing through. Good shot now to stop here, and if we look at this position, you see this arm is long and straight, pointing straight down. That's coincidental with your breathing, and you can see from this shot down here that you're effectively looking straight out at the camera, and the camera being high and above you, what you're seeing, or what you should be seeing if you're aware of it, is the roof, so the roof of the pool or the roof of the facility. I'm not sure whether you swim in this kind of an endless pool the whole time, which is not an issue necessarily, but be aware of when you're turning to breathe what you're actually looking at, because ideally what you should be looking at is effectively just out of the water perpendicular to yourself. So you shouldn't really be seeing anything high above. In fact, if we have a quick look at this animation, Mr. Smooth, which I'm sure you've probably seen, but if we if we look at that position, you can see effectively from a breathing point of view, and if I take the water away, what's happening is that your head should be rotating with your body, and you should effectively be looking out of the screen, so you shouldn't be seeing anything up here, which is effectively where you're looking. So you can see there that your head is looking quite high. So part of that is what's happening here, and your catch is very slow and very late, and effectively what's happening here is this arm is pushing water downwards to help to lift your head out of the water, which is understandable that you're trying to breathe, but what we need to try to do is to get this catch to be much quicker, in other words increase your stroke rate, and also to get it more effective, so that when it does catch, you're propelling yourself and pushing water backwards, rather than effectively slowing down and gliding and pushing water downwards as you've got there. So again, if we watch this through, in terms of this screen down here, in terms of your hand entry and alignment, it's not too bad. So above water, it's not too bad. Your elbows, because you can see there that I'm not sure if you're thinking of this, but your elbows are quite bent on the recovery. It's not really an issue. How you get from the back of the stroke through the recovery to the front almost doesn't matter, but you have got really high bent elbows. And as I say, if you think about bent elbows or high elbows, think about it under the water rather than above the water, and you may find that you're maybe more relaxed with a straighter arm recovery. But in terms of alignment above the water, that's not too bad. It's really important though, when you get into the water, that what you're doing is catching and grabbing hold of that water, or pulling yourself through the water much more quickly. What I'll do now, when the swim sessions that I will send to you, they will include various drills and links to videos with drills. But whilst we're just doing this now, and while we're looking at this, what I'll do is record on this short video, or clip of this video, which is you may have seen before, but what I'm trying to get you to appreciate is what you're going to see now. But first of all, you'll note a very streamlined position, so very streamlined, very aligned. But the high elbow of the thing that we're trying to get you to achieve is that there, and you can see that is actually achieved with this forearm, high vertical forearm, ahead of the body. In other words, keep the elbows keep the elbows high, bend them, and then this pushes water straight back. And what you can see here is a very symmetrical, very effective, and a very fast stroke. Note also that breathing wise, which is something that I'll just come back to quickly on yours. Breathing wise, it's relatively continuous. I'll do something to demonstrate what I think may be happening with you, but I think the breathing may be partly a problem. The catch is definitely a problem, or the slow stroke rate and the catch is definitely a problem. I'll just show you this from behind. So again, what you can see is this high, there. So what you can see is this pushing water back the whole time. But going back to your video a minute, what we can see is, from a breathing point of view, and I'm not sure whether this is the case or not, but it's almost like you're breathing out there, hold it for a while, and then there's an extra exhalation before you actually inhale. So if we watch that through now, again, there's exhalation there, then it almost stops, and then as you turn to take the next breath in, you start again, there, stop again, and then I think as you turn there may be an extra bit there. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's not quite clear on the video in terms of how your exhalation is, but if you're exhaling continuously, then that's really good. If you're exhaling continuously and to a point where you're comfortably empty and you naturally need to take a breath in, that's even better. The only reason for noting that is that your body position is quite low. As you can see, your legs, your alignment, if you like, your legs are quite low at the back. That is, to a large extent, poor catching, but potentially could be breathing as well. So what I'll do is give you some sessions that will try to help you, not necessarily with breathing per se, but with the catch very much in particular. Catching and keeping straight when you're catching will help to alleviate the problem we saw with your leg coming out there. So it will help you with this leg position here, as you can see there and there. And also to help you increase your stroke rate. Something that will be very useful, I'm not sure whether you've got one, is to have a tempo trainer, and that can be used really to increase your stroke rate almost artificially by having that set in mode 3 to a stroke rate which is going to be more effective for you. That the drills that I'll put on the sessions will actually help you to increase your stroke rate without you being aware of it almost. Hope that all makes sense. I'll put all this into an email and come back to me if you've got any problems. Cheers.